Kevin Miller, joined by U.S. Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Hey, Kevin. Good morning.
Thank you for being here. Your words about Representative Jay Dickey's passing.
Well, Jay was one of a kind, an Arkansas original. I knew Jay as a congressman just through the news and when I was a teenager, but I got to know Jay very well in my first campaign in 2011 and 2012, and he was as kind and generous a man as you hope to meet. Jay had his kind of wacky side as well, as some people have recollected in the news lately, with his dog driving through plate glass windows. And that continued throughout his life, I can tell you, although I don't want to relate all the stories. But a great Arkansan. I was very sorry to see his passing, but he's also a man of deep faith, and he's at home with the Lord now.
We like good stories, though. Anytime you want to spin a yarn, feel free. I mean, it's perfectly all right. All right, on to more serious stuff here. We're dealing with North Korea and the issues there.
That is very serious, Kevin. For 25 years, presidents in both parties have been kicking the can down the road. Sometimes that's the best option out of a series of bad options, but it no longer is. North Korea now has tested nuclear devices on multiple occasions. They're obviously perfecting that technology, and they're accelerating their test of ballistic missiles, which can already hold at risk tens of thousands of our troops and citizens in places like Japan and South Korea. And we cannot allow the Kim regime to reach a point where they can put a functional nuclear warhead on an intercontinental missile that could hold the entire United States at risk.
What's the solution to this?
Well, one, we have to stop that policy of kicking the can down the road because we're out of road to kick it down. That's what President Obama told President Trump during the transition, and he took it to heart. Two, we have to make it clear to North Korea that we're not going to tolerate a world in which they can hold at risk the continental United States with a nuclear weapon, that we will begin to put pressure on them on every front, diplomatically, economically, financially, and so forth. And three, we have to lean on China to exert its full influence on the North Korean regime. It really is the lifeline to North Korea. 90% of North Korean activity goes through China, and they simply have not done enough over the years to try to stop the Kim regime from obtaining nuclear weapons. Look, the last thing that North Korea wants is a united, democratic, pro-American Korea on its border, but I'm pretty sure that China doesn't want a second Korean War either. So China should use its influence to help us achieve our diplomatic goals, which is to denuclearize the North Koreans.
Senator, do the Chinese seem to be doing this?
Not enough, Kevin. I am usually skeptical of Chinese actions and motives, and always skeptical of Chinese words. They cut off coal imports a few weeks ago from North Korea, just during the summit between President Xi and President Trump. They turned back some coal imports, but I think that's largely symbolic, a way to try to appeal to American media and perhaps appeal to President Trump. They can do a lot more than that, and we should pressure them to do so. For instance, we should relist North Korea as a state sponsor of terror, which they plainly are, having committed an atrocious attack using a very dangerous nerve agent in the Kuala Lumpur airport that could have easily killed others. We should also try to target North Korean finances that are going through Chinese institutions. And ultimately, we have to tell the Chinese government that we'll target their own businesses and their own financial institutions if they continue to do business with North Korea. U.S.
Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, I want to ask you a question that I ask also to Jeff McCausland, military analyst with CBS News. We're dealing with this issue with North Korea. We've got what's happened in Syria. We've got the bomb we've dropped in Afghanistan. Iran back in the news this week. You've also got tensions with Russia. Is the U.S. in too many places and dealing with too many problems at one time?
Well, unfortunately, Kevin, this is the world that President Trump inherited from President Obama. It really is hard to think of a place where United States interests had been advanced in the previous 8 years. So while we might like for a more peaceful and stable world, President Trump simply doesn't have that option because the world has grown so much more dangerous and so adverse to U.S. interests. So, of course, you have to prioritize certain threats. For instance, the gravest threat in the short term might be the nuclear program in North Korea. But in the longer term, we have other threats as well, like a possibly nuclear Iran or the continued instability in Syria. And the president simply doesn't have the luxury of trying to handle those one at a time because the United States is a global power, and we have global interests. And we have to protect those interests all around the globe.
Senator Tom Cotton, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good morning. 7:47. Let's get our headlines now. Robin.